Welcome to the Wrestling Stable Show, where you don't join, you're chosen. Today is Thursday, June 11th, 2020. And on today's show, we're going to do a full review of last night's AEW Dynamite show. So we start off with Chris Jericho, La Champion, joining Schiavone, as he says, with Excalibur and good old JR, Jim Ross at commentary. Now, for me, one of the top moments of this whole quarantine era has been Jericho on commentary. Obviously, the former and first ever AEW World Heavyweight Champion, but man, he's just good at so many things, especially commentary. So, I understand, he's a former champion. He could always be in the running to get a rematch. He's the leader of the inner circle. But yeah, let's figure out a way to get Jericho on commentary as often as possible. Totally hilarious. Him and Tony really held it down while, Excalibur and JR were not traveling out to the taping. So really good to see that. It's great because, he's a heel. But he doesn't just talk down to everyone. I mean, classic Jericho of, what he's always said. He could say that someone's completely trash, but then when you beat that person, then you just beat someone who's trash. But no, you have to talk someone up, build them up, and then when you beat them, hey, they were good, but they were not as good as I was. So he just does the same kind of things on commentary, builds up everyone, even his opponents, even Pineapple Pete. So it's it's a real treat to listen to Le Champion on commentary. Man, we started off strong. We started off with FTR. Formerly known as the Revival. There was some kind of outcry from the current Revolt team, independent wrestlers, the Revolt, featuring Caleb Conley, and who's in a relationship with Chris Statlander. So, they didn't want to go full Revolt here. I don't know if there's a future stable, the whole stable we call the Revolt, but at least as a tag team, it looks like the former Revival will be known as FTR. Can stand for a bunch of things. We all know. Well, we try to keep this a PG show, so I'm not going to say what the Young Bucks and Cody originally said FTR stands for. But in an interview with Tony Schiavone, they said it could be for the Revolution. It could be for a lot of different things. Formerly the Revival, it can kind of stand for whatever you think it stands for. But they're here. Formerly known as Dash Wilder, who is now Cash Wheeler, Wheeler being his last name, real last name. And then we also had the former, it's Dax Harwood now, and it used to be, now I'm so used to their new names. Scott Dawson, excuse me. Now we have Cash Wheeler, Dax Harwood, and they are the Revival. They made their debut in a super sweet old school truck, making that same entrance here tonight. And they're facing the Blade and the Butcher of Buffalo. Originally as a 3-person act with Allie, the bunny, who we'll talk about a little bit later. She's a little bit sidetracked doing some different things now. FTR, love them. One of my favorite tag teams. I love this old school. Much appreciation and love for, the new style of wrestling. Big fan of the Young Bucks, but for me, FTR, one of my favorites, if not my favorite tag team today. Real throwback to Tully and Arn, who so crazy that they're both members of the AEW roster, and they are both in the stands. You can see them there. Great to see the old brain busters from the World Wrestling Federation, Tully Blanchard, Art Anderson. Tully being my favorite wrestler of all time. Really love what he did with the heel work. Great in the ring. Just loved everything about him and his character. So seeing Tully and Arn at ringside, in the stands to check out FTR in their debut match for All Elite Wrestling here against the Butcher and the Blade was a really nice touch. As Jericho said, purely meat and potatoes, just old school. They cannot say, no flips, just fists, but they let their actions do the talking. And true old school tag team. You see FTR holding the tag ropes. AEW's gotten some flack for kind of how they let tag teams just come in and out of the ring. Not really doing a good job of refereeing and holding the hot tag guy from coming in. But FTR holding the tags ropes, keeping it old school. At one point, Cash Wheeler faked an arm injury. Really old school possum heel tricks. And then they had this amazing spot where Dax hits a brain buster. And we had a tribute to Randy Orton with that draping DDT that both of them did at the same time. You had this great 1-2 with a superplex from Cash, from Dax, and then Cash Wheeler hitting a big splash, almost like an elbow drop. Not really sure what he's going for there, but great kind of bang play, as you would say in the NFL. And then they hit their Goodnight Express. Did not hit that perfectly on the Butcher of Buffalo, but that's the new name for their Shatter Machine. Really great callback to not just the Rock and Roll, but the Midnight Express also. And also had a stuff pile driver, which seems like it's going to be their new finisher. More throwbacks to Arn and Tully. Hit that on the Blade for the 1-2-3. Did not pick up the new name of that stuff pile driver. Had to listen a little bit closer next time. But great debut match. Great way to start off the action here. AEW does such a good job of starting off with tag team action, usually kind of fast and furious, with most of the roster being high flying, but this just old school traditional match with a couple of high flying things with the splash from the top rope, but mostly traditional 1980s style wrestling. Then when the match is over, the Young Bucks come out. Matt Jackson says how they have not been properly introduced. And he just, and then Nick says that he just wants to congratulate them. And, then Matt just claims that they've been the best tag team of the past decade and a half. And before anything could really happen between just those two tag teams, we see the Butcher come in to break it up. Super Bad Death Squad comes in, and then just everyone kind of comes in to result in a little bit of a brawl there. And then we just see some of the highlights from the tag team division. The current tag team champions, Adam Hangman Page and Kenny Omega, come out. So it kind of breaks down a little bit there. Then we see the Natural Nightmares, the team of Dustin Rhodes, the Natural Dustin Rhodes, and his tag team partner QT Marshall. They also have Brandy along with them backstage. They're being interviewed by Dasha, and kind of continuing the storyline that we've mostly seen on Dark. We have Allie there today. Allie has the jacket of the Nightmare family with her own personal engraving on it. I guess it's engraving on a jacket, not really sure. Embroidered, I think is the right word. And they're all there. Dustin just really says that QT needs to stay focused. It's kind of odd here, right? They go from Bunny being, with the Butcher and the Blade to now she's QT's girl. I think everyone is really seeing that this is going to set up to a Natural Nightmares versus Butcher and the Blade. But I don't know. It's just weird to see her go from one role to another just so quickly with maybe I need to watch Dark Clear, but I don't think they did an amazing job explaining that. But that will be a developing story. Then we see Penelope Ford, who is number 5 in the current rankings, along with Kip Sabian, escorting her to the ring, tag teaming with former women's champion, the native beast, Nyla Rose, who's won 8 out of 9 matches. Her only loss to the current women's champion, Shida, and she is tagged, and then they are in a tag team match against the Galaxy's Greatest Alien, Chris Statlander, and the women's world champion, as Dasha would say, Hikaru Shida. So great match here. Ford kicked out of the Falcon Arrow, which I'm not really sure if that is really what Sheeta's going for as her new finisher. I think it's kind of back and forth there. Kip Sabian distracted the ref. This allows Penelope Ford to hit Sheeta with the title and to grab the 1, 2, 3 on the champion. She's currently number 5 in the rankings, like I said, just defeated the women's champion. So we'll see where that takes her going forward. Now, Darby Allin is not medically cleared to wrestle, but he doesn't need a doctor's note to hang out and skate with Tony Hawk. So we saw kind of a backstage kind of package where the two are hanging out. Then we see a video package from Dr. Britt Baker, our role model. Obviously, should be spelled Role, but she's done a great job with the wheelchair that she's been in to kind of nurse her injury. Back of the wheelchair saying role model as in ROLL as in rolling. We see her and Rebel, who I think she calls Reba, kind of all over the place, her assistant, but the former Rebel. And then we see her, Britt Baker, in the wheelchair trying to work out and get stronger with a weight tied to the back of the wheelchair, and the Rebel having to pick it up and help her here. We see some of the interactions he's had with Big Swole. Big Swole is going to be interesting. Not really sure what they're going to do here. Big Swole is yelling at the Murderhawk Monster. She's at ringside a lot. I'm not really sure what's going on here. I'm not loving where we're going with Big Swole's character, but we'll see how it evolves. The highlight for me for Big Swole and Britt Baker's kind of rivalry that they have here, when they were talking about each other's significant others who are in the WWE. More of that, less of some of the ringside antics we've seen recently, for my taste. Then we had the Inner Circle in a 6-man tag. Inner Circle consisting of Jake Hager, Santana Ortiz, a.k.a. the Proud and the Powerful, versus the Best Friends trio of Trent, Chucky T, and freshly squeezed Orange Cassidy. And I love how they've handled Orange Cassidy. Obviously, a lot of people, including like a Jim Cornette, would not love this character. But I love the fact that Orange could be kind of a sloth character, laid back, does not want to put too much energy into anything. But once he flips that switch, high-paced, great wrestler in the ring, only really going to exert energy when it's important, when it's necessary. And this is what we see when he's actually in the ring for wrestling action. So Orange Cassidy uses that kind of trap to the mat, roll-up pin on Ortiz to get the 1-2-3 and the win for his team. Afterwards, we see Jericho leave the commentary booth and go into the ring. He searches under the ring and gets a bag of oranges, which JR called blood oranges. It really just shows that, he's tired of being embarrassed, tired of Orange Cassidy showing up in the middle of their backstage promos and everything else that they're doing. And he just finds under the ring a bag of those blood oranges, hits Orange over the head. He's busted open. Then Orange Cassidy is laid out in the ring, and, Jericho grabs the mic and says that Blood Orange Cassidy has just been juiced. So we're going to continue that. I would imagine we see Jericho and Orange finally go one-on-one at one of the nights of Fyter Fest, which is, July 1st and July 8th. Then we see Alex Marvez, back in the parking lot area and waiting for Moxley. Moxley comes up, and Moxley says that Taz has really gotten under his skin, and the idea that Brian Cage or anyone else thinks that they can beat him really pisses him off. So Taz comes out to confront Moxley, and you see Cage sprinting from behind and attacks Moxley. Hits a spine buster on a red car that's there, and Taz tries to stop him, slow him down. A lot of what you'll see with Heyman trying to control his monster, his beast, Brock Lesnar. This is kind of the relationship that we have with Taz and Cage. Cage did not listen to Taz. He throws Moxley through the back windshield of a car, shattering the back glass. These two will face off at Fyter Fest. It's a world title, so you would think it would be the last match. I'm not sure if there's a special match like a Stadium Stampede that would close the show. So I think this is actually our finals match, especially since Cage won that poker chip for the number one contender ship at the last pay-per-view. So looking for Jon Moxley defending the AEW World Championship against Brian Cage to main event Fyter Fest, the 2-night, 2-week special coming up in July. Then we have Cody, who makes his second TNT defense, second back-to-back closing out of AEW. That defense of the TNT Championship, who we said he's going to be a fighting champion. He's going to defend it every single week. Yes, last week against Jungle Boy, this week against one half of Private Party, Mark Quinn, just showing that anyone can really challenge for the TNT Championship. Jungle Boy, part of a trio, but, has been in singles action. Mark Quinn, mostly in tag team action. So great to see Mark Quinn get an opportunity here at the TNT Championship. And just a little personal note, Justin Roberts is back to introduce the participants. I had missed Justin Roberts like he was a wrestler. And I didn't really expect to have that feeling, going into everything that we're going into today. But he's back. He's in the ring live. Yes, he did announce Stadium Stampede, but really glad to have him back. He does an excellent job, not just on Jon Moxley, but on everything else. Like I said, really missed him. Happy that he's back. Happy that he's staying safe. And he was here to introduce both participants, obviously, but I really love the way that he introduced Cody using one of my favorite taglines for Cody, the grandson of a plumber. So Cody wins this match with a leg lock that focused mostly on twisting the ankle. Really another kind of, submission move that we do not see that often in general. And really basing that off of Quinn's previous ankle injury. Obviously, he got injured last week in the FTR debut. Not just Isaiah Cassidy, but also Matt Hardy helping him to the back because of that ankle injury. Continuing that ankle injury here this week. And then Cody and Mark Quinn himself hurting it more in this match. So really makes a lot of sense, tying into things that we've seen tonight and previously. Really wore down Quinn's already injured ankle, and Cody got the tap out victory here. Then after the bell rings, we see Hager come out. He comes out, pushes Arn into the corner, then kind of looks over his shoulder, and we see that it's kind of a setup for Cody. Hits Cody. They start brawling. Private Party and Matt Hardy come out with chairs. Now Matt Hardy and Private Party have a friendship and I guess a mentorship happening. Obviously, Private Party wanting to learn from one half of the Hardy Boys. We see Sammy Guevara, the Spanish God, and Santana and Ortiz come out. They all fight it out. The show ends, but not before Cody accepts what he perceived to be a challenge from Jake Hager for the TNT Championship. And that is another match that will happen at the 2-week Fyter Fest events. And then we also have a lot of matches that are going to happen next week. MJF versus Billy, which was set up in Billy being interviewed and MJF coming out and insulting Billy and his sons. We have the Natural Nightmares, who we saw some backstage, the backstage promo earlier in the night. And let's see how they can stay focused with the alley distraction going against the tag team champs. Adam Hangman Page and Kenny Omega. We'll also see the Best Friends versus La Sex Gods team of La Champion, Chris Jericho, and Sammy Guevara. And the Best Friends have a title shot currently against whoever the tag team champions are for Fyter Fest, and they're going to put that on the line against Jericho and Guevara next week. And then we will also see the Super Bad Death Squad, accompanied to the ring by Penelope Ford. That is the team of Superbad, Kip Sabian, and Jimmy Havoc, and they are going to go against the Young Bucks. Good to see the Young Bucks back here in action to really keep showing us how them and FTR are two amazing tag teams, and they're on a collision course. And so Fyter Fest is really shaping up. A lot of good things happening for that card next week. A great AEW Dynamite card as well. So that's our show for today. Thanks for checking us out. We'll be back tomorrow with another episode. And just thank you for visiting Wrestling Stable. where you don't join, you're chosen.